Hello, hello. Coming in hot on a Wednesday. I've made a promise I'm not cutting my hair, so I keep having dreams about having my long hair back again. Hi, masterclass time. This is the last one. I mean, not obviously the last masterclass ever, but this is the last one of the 3-part series. And one of the things that we've talked about, just kind of recap skis, we talked about releasing guilt and shame and fear, right? So we have this understanding that we have emotions. We don't like to feel them because they're like the bad ones, or we've been told they're bad, or whatever it is that we've decided is true about those emotions. And so we repress them, we push them away, and we put them down into our unconscious mind that organizes it for us and keeps it there, locked away, right? And so healing is like the ability to unlock that, bring it forward, and work with it, right? Okay, so we talked about that, and there was a lot that I covered in that, and so I really strongly recommend you go back and check that out if you haven't seen it. So that would have been September 18th, so you can just go back on the timeline. And then I think I had to wait a week. I got sick anyways, so there's a bit of a delay there for the next one, which was releasing distraction and judgment. The main takeaway from all of these, well, at least from the last one for sure, is that judgment, judging ourselves, and distraction are kind of the both sides of the same coin. In other words, they continue to take us away from any connection we have to ourselves. They continue to like other us from our own self, to distance ourselves from parts of us. And if we can build capacity to welcome those aspects of ourselves, welcome those parts of ourselves that don't feel great, that maybe we have frustration toward, or dare I say disgust toward, or just absolute despair toward. I'm just going to say it, guys. Just keep in mind with guys. Listen, guys. Be clear on how you feel toward parts of yourself. Be clear on how you feel toward feelings you have, or thoughts that you have, or personality quirks you think you have. Be aware of how you feel toward parts that are just like, yeah, it is what it is. This is how I am. Like, it's just part of me, right? Be aware how you feel toward all of that. Okay, I got energy moving. I'm going to share this into my group. So give me 1 second here. Hello. Okay. I just give less F-bombs these days. I just give less Fs, and it makes it so, like, I was having this conversation with a client yesterday. Nothing's a rush. There's no emergency. I don't have to come on and like entertain people and, keep them occupied and like clickbait everybody. Like, social media is so tiring sometimes. It's like, how do I get everybody's attention? And how do I like, hey, look at me? It's so exhausting sometimes. I put a post today. I was like, I'm having a hard time focusing. Y'all, I'm having a hard time focusing. I don't know if it's like perimenopause, or like where I'm at in my cycle, or like the fact that I've been actually doing running every morning, like what the actual, like breaking this old belief in myself of like, I don't run. Leanna doesn't run. I do run, it turns out. Not long, like not for long times, but I do run now. So it's like, I think we get mentally discombobulated for lots of reasons, and like it's all good. Okay. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. Oh, well, I'll do that after. Hello, love. So I wanted to talk about structure and putting it all together. So I work with a myriad of clients, but then the main piece that we work on is emotional mastery. Forever and ever, amen. Like that's what it is, emotional mastery. Because that's the most important part of any structure to a life goal, a vision, an intention that you have, a goal that you have. That's like the main piece of any desire that you have that's going to hold what you want, that's going to bring you forward, whether it's a job transition, a relationship, a vision that you have for something that you want to actualize in real life, as opposed to just talking about it with friends and journaling out these cool ideas. To make that a real thing in this 3D world, it requires a level of structure. And that's something clients like love telling me, this is why I wanted to work with you. And it's like, okay, interesting. Because there's parts of me that are like, Leanna, you are free like the wind. Like, what kind of structure are you talking about? But like, actually, it's very not true about myself. It's very not true that there's a lot of ways we think we need structure, and I really want to challenge that. So, yep, you can have structure for prioritizing, keeping you accountable, helping you organize your ideas, helping you prioritize which step actually makes sense for this part of your journey. All of that stuff can be done. No problem. We can take that off in 45 minutes in one session. We can take that off. But if you don't have emotional mastery or a level of emotional stability or understanding or a level of healedness within you, it's going to be very difficult to actually hold the vision. Because what's going to happen, like, what's the one thing that takes us off track from any decision or any vision or any plan that we have is a feeling or a thought or a sensation that we have, or a voice in our head or something that where we feel like I'm doubting it, or I feel maybe out of alignment, or I don't know what to do next, or I'm feeling a level of like I'm overwhelmed. That's a big one. And so we can have all the desires and dreams and wishes and plans and goals that we want, but we are the vessel. We are the vessel. We are the timeline. We are the vision. You are the vision. The concrete, actual, tangible things that how it shows up in the world is an extension of that, but you are the one that's holding it, right? And so there's a level of mastery when it comes to your emotional experience that gets to happen. Now, it also turns out that most of us were really not taught any of this. If anything, we were shamed for feeling emotions, unless they were compatible with the desired emotions or the good ones, right? And even if we felt those, maybe sometimes we were told to quiet down, we're being too loud, or it's too much, right? If we're like screaming and giddy with joy, right? So it's like our emotional experience was really at the whim or the will of whomever we spent the most amount of time with as children, right? This doesn't necessarily have to do with your parents or your family of origin, although that's a big part of it. But it's like, what decisions did I make way back on my timeline in this lived lifetime about my emotional experience? Which ones were okay? Which ones were not okay? And be really clear about that, because your relationship to your emotional experience is going to define what's okay, what's not okay. It's going to help build or tear down, as it were, any kind of resilience when things get hard, right? Because when we normalize an experience, when we normalize anger, for example, with children, we normalize that it's okay, and that we can also work with it, and that we can do it safely, and that our own anger doesn't have to spill out everywhere, and that we can get curious about what it's about. So anger, by the way, just in terms of like a process or a structure, in timeline therapy, there is a process of releasing, they call them negative emotions. I would never refer to them, but there is a process of releasing emotions. And anger is the first lowest hanging fruit, right? It's your first sense that something isn't right. It's your first sense of defense. It's the first sort of like protective unit that you've built up for many people. So not for all, but for most of us, anger is the lowest hanging fruit. Like if I ask you what ticks you off, I mean, if you were like not allowed to feel anger as a child, that's a totally different thing, right? But most of us have this innateness within us that we can get really angry about things, right? Or there's like a frustration or a level there that we're just annoyed, right? And so anger is like your first kind of line of defense, or like it's your first like lowest hanging fruit. But always behind that is some level of sadness or some level of grief or some level of vulnerability or some level of hurt that's occurred within you, right? And I can attest to this. Literally right before I got myself sorted to do this, I was on a call with my own mentor and having my own emotional frustration and anger and release about something personal, and it was in relationship with a friend, and it's like things like, I was like, what is happening? And then underneath all of that is like this grief or loss within myself, or this like really deep sadness of not enoughness. But what shows up is like my anger toward this person and projecting it on. So we have to understand how emotions work within our body. We have to understand how to name them, how to claim that they're happening. We don't have to go back and rehash every traumatic event that happened in order to release it. It's not required. Just honesty is required. Telling the truth to yourself is required, which means we have to be willing to get vulnerable. Healing is vulnerability in motion. That's what it is. It's the willingness to say things out loud, either to ourselves or to somebody else that we've maybe never shared before, because it's like taking that repressed part of us, or repressed memory or repressed experience out, and allowing it to be. Simple, just allowing it to be there. There's so many people who are hiding from themselves and hiding from the world, and not wanting people to see all of us. And it distances us from ourselves, and it creates this idea of we're separate from other people, that we're somehow so unique and so different. And of course, everybody's different. We all have a different fingerprint. No two bodies are the same, of course. But we've taken it to such an extreme that we've othered ourselves so that we're these unique snowflakes that nobody could possibly understand us. And that's the problem with thinking that we're so different, is that we're so distanced from other people, thinking that there's nobody who could possibly understand me because nobody's possibly like me. And you can make that decision. If you want to hold that decision, you can have that. That's your own sovereign right to hold that decision, that you're so different that nobody could understand you if you fully went all out and like spoke your truth, right? You can have that decision. You can also release that decision because it limits you. Because if nobody can understand you, then you can never really open up. If you can never really open up, you can never be fully expressed. And if you can never be fully expressed, it means that things are being repressed. So you can go that way, right? So when I say what's the thing that holds it all together, like what's the glue that holds it all together, is your vulnerability and your willingness to tell yourself the truth, right? That doesn't mean you have to spread it all over the internet, and that doesn't mean that everybody gets your truth. There are people who are so unhealed and so distanced within themselves that they'll throw it back at you, and it's like you can boundary up while you do your work and while you heal. So clients are always wanting this structure. And yes, we do talk about structure in terms of their own work. A lot of the clients I work with are visionaries in the world, and they really want to get their message out there. They really want to get their voice open. They really want to show up and be like, hey, here's this thing that I want to do in the world, and would you like to do it with me? You know, a lot of them are healers, Reiki, energy workers, things like that. And I would not be doing my job if we just didn't have those honest conversations about what is holding you back. What have you decided is true about yourself that makes it so that you can't try this, or it's not safe to do this, right? And a lot of this comes down to safety. So I want you to think of like structure as like a safety belt. And I kind of talked about this yesterday when I was on a call. Is like, you do get to have safety belts, right? You do get to make it safe so that you can feel like you can show up, because the thing that's gonna like hold you back or like slow you down or have you second guess is like a sense of safety. And we use different words to describe that. Like, in alignment is a big one. In alignment, like get really clear on what that means for you. Like, yes, is it like it aligns with your values? For sure. But most of the time what we mean is like it feels safe, right? We do want aspects of our vision and our journey to feel stretchy. It shouldn't all feel safe and warm and cozy and lovely, because that usually just means that we're playing small, right? When I'm like playing small. So it does get to feel stretchy. It's supposed to, right? But you get to kind of like ante up safety belts as you go. And really what that looks like is taking out the pieces that are afraid of what's going to happen if you do take that step, and kind of bringing those up so that we can confront them and we can work with them and we can understand what's the constellation of like discomfort I have around this part of myself? Like, what's the real constellation of discomfort I have? And what I mean by that is get clear, and I'm going to say this over and over again, get clear on how you feel toward the parts of you that you don't think are good enough, that you think you should hide, that you're afraid of other people seeing within you, right? It's like, how do you feel toward those parts? And if you notice that you're frustrated, you're tired of them, you just want them to go away, so like no parts are bad, right? Like remember, but like understand that those are protective mechanisms. Frustration is a protective mechanism. Annoyed with them is a protective mechanism. It distances you from accessing the very part of yourself that needs the most amount of attention. It's so funny that we do that, but here we are trying to do our best in preserving ourselves in the world, but then putting away the most important, most valuable aspects of ourselves because they've been hurt, right? So structure is stability. Stability is emotional mastery. When I say emotional mastery, mastery is not perfection. Mastery is the willingness to repeat things over and over again so that you can get better at it, and it can become more clear for you, and it can become easier. Emotional mastery is the piece that's going to hold any vision together, period. Like this is a hill I'll die on. I get so upset seeing people spend all this money out online and getting coaching and getting business coaching, for example. Guys, this is not my first rodeo. This is not my first run around on the internet streets and watching people hire business coaches, myself included. I got very lucky. I hired an amazing coach right from the get-go. 2 now that I've worked with, like consistently over time, right? Just don't hop from coach to coach, folks. Although, whatever, do you. Let me just get back to what I'm saying is like, what slays me is that people spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars sometimes on business coaching for a place they are not emotionally mature to handle. They haven't the emotional capacity to handle the hard shit that comes with being the vision and taking those steps that your business coach is going to tell you to take. Because it requires that you sit down and focus and get clear on what you do, which means you have to own it, which means you have to be able to handle the parts of yourself that doubt you're good enough, which means you have to be able to have a way to handle doubt in your system. You also have to recognize a business coach, for example, is somebody who is going to give you steps and processes. Not all of those, depending on who the business coach is, but not all of those is a step. Oh, hi, birdie. Well, there's a little birdie at my window. Is a step 1, step 2, step 3. Not all of them are for you. So you need to have discernment and be able to say, that is not for me. I don't do it that way. This is how I want to do it. While still being willing to release any ego that says I can't follow somebody's orders. You have to be coachable. So the amount of structure you need inside yourself to be able to hold your vision is absolutely incredible. It is the most important thing. It is the hill that I will die on. Because what happens when you are emotionally unstable or not grounded or feeling overwhelmed all the time? Your nervous system is on high alert. You can't calm down. The first thing to go offline is the very part of your brain that you need in order to organize information, in order to make decisions. So I'm looking at the clock because like I do have a client at 2. She'll laugh. She'll be like, oh, you could have told me I was a bit later. I'm like, no. So that's the first place that's going to go offline is the brain up here. Executive functioning is going to go off. You're going to have your fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses. And if those are constantly going off, how can you hold any plan of action? How can you hold any structure in terms of like a content plan or this, that, and the other? It's like, how can you hold any accountability within yourself? If part of your personality quirk is like, I don't follow the rules, or like, oh yeah, I always fall off the wagon, or oh yeah, I have such a hard time following through. It's just who I am, right? if that's part of your personality quirk that you've decided is you, first of all good. There's like zero judgment on that. And it's going to make it really tough. So you can redecide who you really are actually at any point. You can make new decisions about who you are. I have all of these. I'm going to dose myself in all of my Post-it notes that I have to tell you all the things, but that I'm just throwing them all out. It's just like, I can tell you all the structure. I can tell you all the steps. I can tell you all the things. I mean, one of the things I will say, if you are a visionary and you are working on 9, I will tell you the number, like one thing is to really know your work. That's why I get so like blah, 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 in my head when I'm like, I don't even know what I do anymore. I was just whining to my coach about this, having a little fit. I don't know what I do. I don't understand it. It's like, no. I do. But if you can't articulate what you do with a level of clarity, don't worry about confidence. Confidence is like, what is confidence? Don't focus on confidence, okay? Don't be like, I have to get confident. Just whatever that is, put that aside. Confidence and clarity come with action, right? For action to happen, there needs to be just a little bit of clarity, just enough. But I'll tell you, know what it is you do. Be able to talk about it 6,000 different ways. Study it. Know it, learn it, be it, do it, be it integrated. There's nothing I teach my clients that I haven't had some level of mastery with. Some level. I'm not perfect, right? But I'm doing the same thing over and over. I'm focusing on the same thing over and over and over again. So know what you do, and then be able to talk about it. Be able to like make it make sense for people. So those are like the basic, like if I'm doing any coaching toward people actually taking action and making steps and designing content and getting clear, it's like, let's have that maybe unsexy conversation, but very important conversation. It's like the most important thing. Don't worry about funnels or like tripwires or like this. Don't worry about any of it. Like Facebook ads. Oh my God, it's just don't do it. Focus on making sure you've got the level of emotional mastery, that some of the big gaps have been worked on and you are working on closing them. Get clear on what's actually holding you back. Get clear on what actually feels like a block. And narrow it down to like one or two things. If I could just change this and this, if I could get some support with just this and this, that's going to help me move forward. Just get clear on that. Just one or two things within yourself. And then understand what you do. Be able to talk about it. 6 ways to Sunday. And then if you don't want to talk about it, why? What's going on? Revert back to question number 1. That's the structure. The structure is you. The structure is you. And having those honest conversations. Okay, I am going to go. I do have a client coming on my Zoom in a few moments. But I will be having some free coaching calls coming out. They'll have a fun, fancy name. Basically, we're going to go through and do a little bit of an audit in both like the structure of your vision and like, what are you doing? What's happening? What are you not doing? What do you want to be doing? And then also like, what's happening inside of you that's not letting that happen, or like what's the disconnect, so that at the end, at least from seeing both sides of the vision, me doing the thing, taking the steps, structure, me feeling all that shit, there's like a distance between those, or there's something disconnected, right? We want both of these to be in alignment with each other. Yay, everybody. Okay, I'm going to go. I love you all. Thank you for just being out in the world and doing you. And yeah, big love. Okay, I'll tell you more about those audits. So you'll see it. It'll be up soon. Okay, bye.